Okay. So, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Thank you for joining in. I really appreciate you, taking time out of your day and coming out here to talk about this today. So, for people who are going to tune in, the first thing I want to get out of the way is that we're going to be talking about the drug culture in powerlifting in both over across the world, as well as how it is in India, and how we can improve on the scene overall uh, within India. Because as far as I understand, in the UK, in the US, and especially in like the more well-developed nations like the Nordic countries like Norway, Sweden, um, whatever else on that side of of the world, they all have like pretty strict drug testing. And for the most part, you can be sure that most of the athletes that are in tested federations are natural. So I wanted to
Mhm.
get like your opinion, your experience, because you have a lot of experience. I think you've been doing this for a long time. So why don't you go
Mhm.
ahead and talk a little bit about yourself on how long you've been doing, when you started.
My name is For those who don't know me, my name is Cheung. I've been involved in powerlifting for since about 2012, 2013. I think I left university, decided to sort of. I was already like powerlifting training myself at the time, and raw powerlifting was already like very because social media wasn't very big. Powerlifting was not very big either, and so it was very much a very niche sport. Like most people wouldn't have heard of it. And I started to sort of promote. I worked in the fitness industry. I worked in the university gym at the time, and I started to promote myself as a powerlifting coach. I used to coach people for free. I didn't have any sort of formal education or anything like that. I think courses were not very, if there were courses, it wasn't very obvious. Um, and I was very much a self-taught powerlifting coach and personal trainer at the same time. And yeah, just over the years, I think I really grew my sort of career in the university powerlifting scene. So the first sort of generation of powerlifters that I coached they're all university students, and so because of that, I very quickly gained experience, working with a lot of athletes, and over time I sort of started working with like um, independent powerlifters from the general population. I was invited back in 2015, 2016. That's when I was also part of the international coaching team as well. So I was an assistant coach. I assisted the head coach at the time, who was Lawrence Farncombe. Shout out to him. Um, yeah, so and over the 13, 14-year career, I've worked with 4 university athletes, and I work with powerlifters from all around the world. I work with a range of lifters from beginners to international competitors. So yeah, that's been my career.
Yeah, I think I relate a lot to that. Because like back when we started, there was nothing like a powerlifting course. It was like you learn
Mm,
training principles and programming and periodization principles, and then you
mm,
start to learn and apply on your own. It's not like
mm.
there was never like a book kind of a thing
Yeah.
saying that, or like a course saying that, well, this is powerlifting programming, this is how you do it, this is how you do it. It's
Mm,
popping up a lot more now where people are talking
hmm.
about, they give case studies and they talk about like 3-day, 4-day, 5-day, or maybe even 6-day templates. And they're
Yeah.
like, oh, this is how we usually design things. But
Hmm.
yeah, that's the thing I've seen with a lot of coaches who are like old, like the older gen
Mm,
coaches. Yeah, it's the same. It's
yeah.
very similar. But right off the bat, you know what I noticed? Like in the UK and the US, there's a huge emphasis on university level powerlifting. As
Yeah.
in, like weight training itself is something that's so ingrained from a university level.
Yeah.
University over there is like what, like when you're 16, 17 years old, something like that, right?
18 to
18, 19.
21 is when, 18 plus is when,
Yeah,
I mean, you do get like the occasional person who's like 17 and, they're
right,
obviously like super
right.
smart. The vast majority
Yeah,
of like university entrants are like 18 years old. But yeah,
yeah.
so
So
basically
like
the junior years.
yeah, so right
Yeah.
off the bat, like that's what I noticed. Like there's a huge culture difference in the way India and other countries have. Like it's a thing that I've seen in US, and now when you mention UK, is that
Mm,
they have like a culture of starting off younger at the age of
mm,
like 14, 15, because they use weight training as a supplementation for actual sports, for
mhm,
like strength for actual sports. That's what I've noticed.
mm.
If it's for like, especially if there's a lot of emphasis on NFL, like American football is what I've seen, is where they
Yeah.
talk about like I started going to the gym because I want to get stronger in on the field, and that's how I got into power. That's usually how you see it, like or for baseball or whatever.
Yeah.
Whereas in India,
Is
there's a
that
huge
yeah.
difference. Yeah, go on. Sorry.
No, no, I was going to say it's definitely a lot. From what I see, it definitely seems to be a lot bigger in the US
Yeah.
than the UK. It still exists in the UK, but I,
Mhm.
I think it's just widely more um, uh, available in terms of like strength training during the teenage years. Yeah, it's just an observation. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think like until recently, I'm seeing a good change recently where like a lot of Indian parents are sending their children now to the gym at
Mm,
a younger age, like around that 16, 17 years old. It's a good age to start off at. And it's good. But like when we were growing up, we were always told like you should never go to the gym. You'll stop growing height wise. That was like a
Do people still
very.
believe that?
Oh yeah, I think majority
Yeah.
population still believes it. I think
Yeah.
like I don't represent the majority because I stay away from all of these things. But
Hmm.
like I'm pretty sure the majority of the population still believes in things like that. So that's also a thing. Like I was thinking of talking about here is that when you talk about the reason why I feel like right, like I'll get into the topic here, but like the reason why I feel like the whole drug culture in India is like really bad and why it
Mm,
needs to stop as a whole.
mm,
Like of course I understand niche this thing, like for bodybuilding to some degree, that's understandable. I feel like it's more acceptable in bodybuilding circles, like okay, that's something that people take.
it's
And I
part and
believe
parcel.
that, yeah, and then I believe that some people on TRT dosages for quality of life, that's kind of okay, as long as you're not getting into tested federations. I think it's fine. It's your life, it's your choice, you want to do it, that's fine. But
Yeah.
what I feel like in a country like India, right, because we have so many these myths and we're held back by a lot of these things. So like I said, the whole height thing, right? Parents believe that you'll stop growing, so that's why they don't allow you to go to the gym until you're like, usually until you're done with your engineering, because that's like the most mainstream thing that Indians do, which is like
Mm,
by the time they're done it's like 23, 24, and then you get into your job, and that's when they start going to the gym because they're like, you know what, I'm getting too fat. That's
mm,
how it starts. But a lot of people are also held back by the fact that nutritionally we are a country that is uh, very carb and fat heavy. We're not very protein heavy. It's a very protein deficient country, and a
mm.
lot of it comes from the belief that you shouldn't be eating non-veg at all or every day. Even the non-vegetarians in India are occasional non-vegetarian eaters. So
Mm.
even if they eat chicken, it's like weekly once. So it's usually frowned upon to eat every day from a cultural aspect. So when you have the general population thinking like that, I feel like the drugs makes a huge entry to barrier, because it's like when you're so worried about something like that, and then you're worried about basic things like nutrition, and then you're even more worried about, oh, whey protein, I heard it's bad for you. Oh, creatine, I heard it's bad for you. That's when, like, when parents start hearing even more about the drug culture that actually exists at a grassroots level, it makes the entry barrier even worse, right? Because like when you're worried about small things, you'd be worried about much bigger things a lot more. So that's
Yeah.
also another reason. That's like one of the main reasons why I feel like parents are very hesitant in sending. Not to mention the fact that a significant number of injuries that do happen in the gym are over glorified.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
because
think
like
what
go on,
yeah, go
sorry.
on, go on. Yeah, well,
No, I was
one of the
saying
things. Go on, you
oh,
go
there's
first. You
a
go first.
sorry,
There's a
sorry.
delay. There's a
Yeah,
delay.
yeah,
There's
yeah.
a delay.
Yeah, there's a delay. So what I was saying is like, if you actually look at the data, right? there's a significant amount of injuries that happen per 1,000 hours of any other sport, much more than just lifting weights. There's like, if I'm not wrong, there's something like there are higher injuries on treadmills than there are with lifting weights.
I
Something
mean, I
like
don't
that, if I'm
know.
not wrong.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but I do know that when it comes to powerlifting and weightlifting, like per
Yeah.
1,000 hours of training, like it's definitely one of the lower,
Yeah.
one of the lower rates of incidences. It
Yep.
has, one of the lowest rates of injuries. But I don't know if that's because weightlifters like rest 5 minutes and they only lift for 10 seconds when they do their set. But
Yeah.
like it's definitely one of the much safer sports. And I think going back on a lot of the issues that I've definitely seen, and we've definitely talked about in the past.
Mm.
I think a lot of the problems that exist in the culture is definitely systemic, right? So there's the cultural like context of like what are the cultural narratives that exist in the belief about health and fitness,
Mm.
from India, and then there's also like when it comes to things like drug culture and stuff like that. Well, one of the very fascinating things I've learned actually from a friend of mine who's a doctor, is that like when it comes to things like performance enhancing drugs, they're
Mm.
readily available. Like you can get
Yes.
them around a counter. Like you're like that would be like impossible in the UK, right? So
Mm.
I think when you have such a low barrier to access, when the path of
Right.
least resistance is just to go to a pharmacy and just tell them what you want and they give it to you. It's like, well, no wonder like drug culture is like rife, right? um Whereas like in order to get any sort of prescription of any sort of medicine, in the
Mm.
UK you need a doctor's prescription, like even melatonin. Like I don't know if
Mm.
melatonin is readily available around the
Oh yeah,
off the counter.
yeah. It is. It
Yeah,
is. It is. It
no,
is.
you need a prescription for that in the UK.
Oh, okay.
So and I think there's definitely, I think going back to the whole protein thing, like I think maybe it's just because of like the sort of the cultural conversations about nutrition and health and how protein is so important.
Mm.
um if you listen to any podcasts, if you go into any sort of social media accounts, like protein is very big, right? And the reason why
Right.
you can tell that it's such a big thing now is because like if you go to supermarkets, I don't know what it's like in India, but in the
Mm.
UK, if you
Yeah.
go to supermarkets, like there are all of these like traditionally carb heavy like products like
Mm.
crisps,
Yeah.
crackers, or whatever, bread. Like you've got high protein variation. So like you've got high protein bread, you've got high protein bagels
Oh
and
yeah.
buns,
Yeah.
you've
Yeah.
got high protein crackers. Like there's this, in terms of yogurts, right? Like dairy,
Yeah.
there are whole sections of just high protein variations of them. So I think we're probably a lot more sort of maybe up to date with the science, and we're a lot more we're a lot more aware
Mm.
of the necessity for having higher levels of protein. And I think people, um, I think obesity is definitely a big problem in the UK.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that the UK has introduced is a sugar tax, right? So
Right.
there's definitely a cultural and political push towards their citizens being a little bit healthier as well. So I think
Mm.
all of these things sort of bleed into, um, all these little things all together sort of bleed into like, um, where people are, when they go to the gym, and um, the sort of mindsets that people generally have with training and health and nutrition.
Mm. It's the thing in
Yeah,
India nowadays, because like there's a lot more awareness with protein, but then as you said, like so in the UK, I believe like food products are a little more regulated, well regulated, right? Like for
yeah,
example, like you said, the bread and crisps and stuff like that, they all have higher protein in them. Whereas in India, they're not well regulated, which is why marketing can show that, but the macros don't match.
Yeah.
So that's the reason why I don't suggest that for people in India. I suggest like just go for um food that you can just make at home.
Yeah.
Because like we had a crackdown recently where we had those low calorie ice creams and none of them were low calorie. Yeah, but like you can get away with marketing that way. I don't know how
Yeah.
why the marketing rules are so, as you said, like it's just like the barrier to certain things are so low
Yeah.
that you can just get away with it, which is why like you said, like high protein bread or anything like that, you have to be very wary of whether it actually is, which is why I just don't buy into those products or get those, except for the only protein supplement that I would use is whey protein. I don't
Hmm.
that too something that is already third party tested to make sure that
Hmm.
it is legit. Otherwise
Yeah.
I don't prefer anything else, because there is always a chance of you finding fakes or finding something else, or even the
Yeah.
company is a fraud. Here there's a high chance of that. So while we are getting better, it's like, I mean, I'll tell you something that I found funny. So McDonald's here, they're marketing their normal chicken burger as high protein. I mean, it has chicken in it, of course it's going to have protein.
There's no legal definition of what high protein is.
Yeah, exactly. Like there are
Yeah.
places that will say like high protein and it'll have 10 grams, and then there'll be some that'll have more, and it'll be
Yeah.
like high protein, same thing. But like what I found funny with McDonald's is that it's a chicken burger, it's going to have protein.
Yeah.
And they just label it as high protein and call it healthy burgers. So because now that's the, for people who don't know better, the marketing is such that, oh, protein is healthy, so anything that you put protein label on it, it's going to be healthy. So even if it's a fried chicken burger, they'll be like, oh, it has protein in it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's the, I've seen that. It's damn, it's like the marketing is so weird in
Yeah.
India. And
Yeah. I
that's
think I yeah.
usually because of a lack of understanding stuff
Yeah.
that people buy into.
Yeah, yeah. I think it definitely needs to happen on on the local level. Like people just need to have that conversation, and people need to, you know, prominent figures like yourself. There needs to
Mm,
be, you know, that conversation that needs to be started, and it might be through a podcast like this. It might be through YouTube videos. It might be through social media, right? And I think, education is definitely the first thing.
yeah,
Um, and yeah, I think it's a difficult one, right? Because like trying to change the mindset that people have on a population level is going to require a lot of leadership from prominent figures, you know.
right.
Um, yeah, which is why I think doing stuff like this, doing podcasts like this is going to be like a small but necessary part.
Yeah,
But yeah,
yeah.
it's
So like, yeah, like as you said, like the awareness has to start from like a grassroots level and has to like, really improve over time.
yeah,
So that's kind of what, if you think about it from a powerlifting aspect as well, that's basically the big difference between what I see in India and the cultures outside. Is that because when I started powerlifting, which is like back in 2017 or something, yeah, like 2017, like, it's been 9 years since I got into it.
yeah,
But when I was like, but before that, like even though I was going to the gym and I was just doing bodybuilding stuff, I was still kind of looking to powerlifting side because I was always, pretty fascinated by big squat and bench and deadlift numbers. Because
mm,
back then, bodybuilding was not like, it's not just pure hypertrophy. People were still like, oh, you need to squat, bench, deadlift back then. Like, we did not have
mm,
like, just leg press is fine or something like that. We didn't have something like that. Back then, you do your SBD work and then you do some like machine work for muscle building. This is
mm,
how we used to think of it.
mm,
So, from what I've seen, like the big difference is that there has always been a very big emphasis on programming and periodization
mm,
strategies in
mm,
the US, in especially in the US, because I used to follow a lot of the US like super training, Mark Bell super training, and then I used to watch Candido and all of these people, and all of them used and Mike Tusher from back then, because Mike Tusher is known as the one to bring RPE based programming into
mhm,
powerlifting and a
mhm,
bottom up emerging strategies type of
mm,
a
mhm,
programming model.
mhm,
So I used to watch a lot of them, and I used to keep thinking like, there's something different. It's
mm.
not just go to the gym. Oh, you have legs squat today. Okay, squat and then leg press and leg extension, hamstring curl, then go back home. That's like a regular program that anybody can write. Even your regular
Yeah,
gym trainer will do that for you. So that's a thing that I used to sit and think a lot, like, what is it that they do different that they're able to hit numbers that were thought of as like insane, because and then when I got into the scene in the local area, there is a huge mismatch between that and this. Whereas, like, you would see conversations like, what can I do better, programming aspect or technique aspect for my lifter or for myself, right? Whereas when I went to the local this thing, people would be like, oh, you want to start powerlifting? You need to start injecting yourself. And I was like, there's a huge gap because I was instantly shocked by that. I was like, that should not be the first step. I don't think that's the first step. Like, even though I did not have much of an idea about things, I was still like, that does not sound right. You know what I mean? Like, I was just like, how can the first step to powerlifting be that I need to start injecting myself? That just doesn't sound good. And I was always confused because I was like, I'm still a beginner. I know I haven't hit a plateau yet. I'm not at a position where I'm not progressing anymore. It's nothing like that. It's not like I've hit my, that natural limit, natty potential, whatever that end limit that people put on themselves. I don't think that exists because it's always like little by little that you can put on every year. I mean, if you deadlift 300 now, and then 10 years later you can deadlift 320, that's still you progressing. It's not you've not hit a limit yet. And then you put 5 kgs more in the next 2-3 years, you're still progressing. There is no limit yet. I understand, like, people might feel progress is slow. They confuse that with the limit. Right. And that's where they might think like, oh, if I took stuff, then maybe I would have hit 350 by now. Like, which is fine. I'm not saying that's not possible, but don't get into that mindset like there's a natural limit, because there's no limit as such. There's always something that you could do better. It's just that the progress is going to be slower.
And I think this is probably one of the things that it's precisely that if you've powerlifted for quite a few years, like, people often end up leaving the sport because, like, the amount that you actually gain and the amount of effort that you need to, like, put into, like, hey, sleeping well, recovery. I mean, not that sleeping well is a bad thing. The amount that you may need to train, right? We'll talk about that later on. The amount that you may need to train and the potential risk for injury once the longer that you train, the higher the chance that you may get an injury that really holds you back, right? And the reward in, like, being able to add an extra 2.5 kilos or 5 kilos more on a lift after you train for a few years might not necessarily be worth it. For some people, it totally is, right? Like, and it's those people who can just, like, see the value in just, like, being able to, like, just chip and add 2.5, 5 kilos on your squat, going from, like, let's say 310 to 315, right? That might be like amazing, and you might appreciate that, and some people might not. And I think and having that expectation is going to be really important. And I think there was a really good study that came out, which looked, it was a longitudinal study, so it looked at I think it was done on powerlifters. They looked at the rate of progress in powerlifters over time, and it's something like, and you look at the curve, right, and it's like the vast majority of the gains are made in the first 2 to 3 years, and then, like, you make very little gains over the next 10 years, right? Like, it just flattens out, and it barely, like, inclines, and and that's part of the sport. But one of the things that I would also say, right, I don't know if you watch SBD Sheffield.
Yes,
Right? You watched this weekend? I was
there.
I know. And one of the really important things that I think that people need to know about these athletes that all went, like, have a guess what the average number of competitive years that these lifters went through.
I saw that.
Have
it's
a
like
guess.
8.5 years.
Right? Yeah. So it was Etienne Lecher who had the lowest. He competed for 4 years, right?
Yes.
And it was Kiel or Kjell Bekkeland from Norway.
Bekkeland.
He's been competing since 2006. Some of us listening to these podcasts probably weren't born then, right?
Yes.
So and I think if that is not if that's not obvious, that, like, powerlifting is a marathon where, like, you make incremental gains, but those incremental gains, it over a long period of time means that, like, it looks like you got really strong. I think people need to be aware of that, and understand that the expectation is not that you just like blast yourself and gain 20% every year continuously. I think that's the most important one. And I think it's go on.
Sorry, go on. Finish off.
Yeah. So I was saying that and I think like the thing you need to understand is that the greatest success that you gain in powerlifting is achieved by the longest period of time that you stay in the sport, that you have a very effective and efficient set of processes, including your training and lifestyle, right? So you got to make sure that you have a very effective lifestyle that enables you to be able to recover well and actually grow, and then also making sure that you have very intelligent training, so you minimize the progress, right? Because especially if you're training, let's say 8-10 years into it, and if you do get an injury, regardless of what kind of injury it is, it might set you back an extra 10% or something like that. So this is why, like, being able to pace yourself, being able to like really have intelligent programming is such a big part of powerlifting.
And I wanted to add on to that, like everything that you just said, because I've like off late I tried to like take a look at Jurin's Kengamu's career path. And that guy's career path is like very awkward, because like he hadn't seen a lot of progress for a very long time. If you actually see his open powerlifting, for a good amount of time, he was stuck around that 650, 700 kilo range. He was not like that great of a lifter at that point of time. He was there in the background, but he was never considered as like a top level lifter. And then I think what he talked about how offloading or like outsourcing his programming, his nutrition, and even his mental this thing, like you have performance coaches, right? So he said that these things made a huge difference in how he grew. And he's 37 now and he's still hitting PRs, right? That man's been there for a long time. But if you see his progress trajectory, he hasn't progressed for a while because he never gave back that kind of effort into the sport. But the moment he started to give back more, he started to gain more. That's something that I noticed with Jurin's.
I think, if you look at his open IPF, he's just been slowly chipping it away. Like,
but like there's a period of time in between where he's like not so like crazy strong. If you see like around that time when he's like 30, he's like at that 285, 307.5. Whereas you see now, like you see like these deadlifts at around that 300 mark, right? In 2019. And then you see now it's 65 years in the last 7 years, but nobody sees that. People look at him now. No one notices it. No one notices it now. Because like I remember like when he beat Russ, that was like a huge upset. People were like, I don't even know who this guy is. Right. But then you see his, like, as you saw his open powerlifting, he's like just been consistently just going at it.
It's the hare and a tortoise. He's a tortoise. He's essentially a tortoise. He's just been slowly chipping it away.
And I think like this is something that a lot of people talk about, like, is that recency bias of seeing explosive numbers versus somebody like him. You know what I mean? So if you even take a look at, even if you take a look at somebody like, I was just thinking about, like, you see there are certain lifters who just come really fast. And they just explode on the scene. But then you also see them fade away that fast. It's a thing that I've seen in the last couple of, like, so many years. And then there are people like him who've just been going at it. And even Shell, who's been there for like, I don't know, he's been lifting for like some 20 something, 25 years something, for as long as old as I am, or something like
that. Let me check. So he's been competing since he was 19, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And it was 2007. And his numbers were 170. He had a, hold on, that's probably equipped.
He was an equipped lifter back then.
170, 175, 200, which obviously, like, he was young at the time, but he's been chipping it away. And I think people need to, like, if you actually look at how many kilos people add on to the total, it's very what's the word? they're not huge explosions. They're not huge
Yeah.
explosions in numbers.
Yeah.
They'll add maybe 20, 30 kilos on the lifts a year, which if
Yep.
you think about it in terms of individual lifts, it might be an extra 10 kilos, it might be an extra 12 kilos, which is super realistic. That's like a kilo a month, right?
Yep.
Which
Yep.
is
Yep.
super
Yep.
realistic. But it's just being consistent. I think if you if you really want to be as successful as possible in powerlifting, you need to your relationship with the sport needs to be in a way that doesn't burn you out.
Yeah.
Right. And I think you mentioned something that I wanted to touch upon, which was the idea that people explode and then suddenly fall off, right? I definitely remember a few like international faces from other countries where they exploded into the scene and then they'd fallen off. My sort of speculation with that is just like when you become that person, you almost have that identity of like being an elite lifter or being a champion, and then like I find that they often just fall off because they just get injured.
I think
They
they
get injured.
put so much pressure on themselves that they're
Yeah.
constantly pushing numbers that they shouldn't be pushing all the time.
Yeah,
and that's usually where and that's just bad.
and they compete often. And they compete.
Yeah, and they compete too often. So that's usually where they start pushing too much all the time. And that's the thing that I always keep saying. And it's a video of yours that I recommend that people watch every time, which is like, do you need to load the bar that much to progress? I think you have a video something like that, right? Like where you say, do you need to train heavy all the time to progress? Something like that. It's a video that I recommend.
Yeah.
And I send a lot of people when they start overshooting too much. Because I'm like, when we say don't push too hard all the time, we're not saying don't push hard. We're just saying push enough. That's what a lot of people don't understand. Because a good number of lifters that I've seen, they explode onto the scene, and then once there's a lot of talk about them, right? That oh, there's this new guy who's coming up, they start taking so much pressure themselves that they feel like they have to deliver all the time.
Yeah.
And
I think the best
along with that, with the rise of social media, because they feel like so many people are watching. So they feel so much pressure. I've seen this with like younger lifters so much. And that's the reason why there are very few lifters that I feel are very mature when it comes to these things.
Yeah. I think the thing, I definitely see this in some of the younger lifters as well. It's almost like every day is a competition day for them. And the referee is their followers. And the thing that I always say is like, you have to think about it this way, right? The training that you do is an environment. Like you're submitting your body to a ton of stress to recover from. But the analogy that I like to use is if you were a farmer and you wanted to optimize how much rice you grow in a field, right? Would you just drown it with water? Would you just drown it with fertilizer? You probably wouldn't do that, right?
Yeah.
Like you're trying to create the largest yield over the largest period of time, right? That might and the thing that you'll realize is that farmers have to be very careful with how much rainfall and water the rice get, and you have to be, whatever crop it is, right? You have to be very intelligent with managing the fertilizer, the feed, and so on and so forth. So they're just like the you have to understand that, like, another analogy I like to use is like if you're a doctor and you're prescribing someone medication, do you just like maximize the dosage, or do you focus on like finding the optimal dose that gets you the effect that you want without creating harm, right? Like, and I think people need to understand.
I mean, if I'm going to put that in Indian terms, it's like you have viral fever and you go to a doctor and the doctor prescribes something like a crocin tablet a day, or like 2 a day or something like that. It's not like they're gonna say like, well, it's a course of 5 days, 2 a day, so just take 10 right now. It doesn't work like that. Because like you'll overdose. You're gonna feel horrible after that. Though after effects are gonna be high. So it's the same thing with training. Like you need to understand how much to dose, when to dose, and there should be a reason for why you're dosing that. That's where the intelligent programming and periodization strategies come into play. It's not like you don't do random things and expect results. You do the right kind of work with the right kind of direction to get to where you want to be. It's not like you don't just throw random stuff and then hope it works.
And I guess that's probably the reason why like people end up resorting to drugs, right? Like in India, like if if you train so hard and then your body can't recover it, it's like, okay, how can I make
Yeah.
myself recover from this? Because this is what I think I need to do. It's like, well, you're
Yeah,
probably
yeah.
just going to be blasting some PEDs, right? So, yeah,
So in India, it's like, from what I've observed, because I actually, like, in my current state, I'm in a bubble where I stay with my clients and I don't really bother with anyone else. So I
yeah,
don't really know too much, but I have a good idea of what happens. Is that
hmm,
the culture is like, you have to start taking PEDs as soon as you want to compete, and this
yeah,
is usually what they call as the on season. And they usually start taking it, like, whenever the competitions are announced, which is like, competitions are announced at like in very short periods of time in India. There's no
hmm,
proper calendar or a
yeah,
schedule.
hmm,
So in other countries, you have like, okay, we're going to have at nationals around June, July, or whatever, and
hmm,
then 2-3 months before that, you're going to have the state level selections or whatever. You have things like that, right? In India, it's
hmm,
not like that. In India, it's like nationals will be announced, and then each federation will decide last moment.
hmm,
So we have, like, for example, I'll tell you. So we have a district competition in the next 3 days,
hmm.
and then 2 weeks later we have state competitions, and then 3 weeks after that we have national competition. So we have three competitions to do in like seven weeks period. Yes,
Yeah. And I feel like that needs to be organized a little bit
it
better.
has to, but
Yeah.
it's something that, and like, if you're somebody who's going to worlds, then you have four
Hmm.
in a short span of time. So they do not allow athletes to develop because the scheduling itself is bad. And I
Yeah.
believe that this is what all the lifters do, is that,
Yeah.
like, especially the ones who are on PEDs, what they do is that they start blasting like somewhere around the time when they know that the competition is going to happen. So they start taking it all the way up until nationals. And usually the people who are like, it's an open secret to some degree. Like, people have a very good idea that this guy's on something, right?
Hmm.
They don't even show up to nationals because they're like, they might test me. So they might even skip nationals. And then after that, they just kind of call it as off-season training, which is like
Hmm.
no PEDs. And then they don't even train. So which is also why I've noticed that from a cultural mindset in India itself, right?
Hmm.
They believe that those 2 to 3 months during the year is when you're supposed to train, and the rest of the year you don't need to train. But they don't understand that training is throughout the year, and peaking is the process of expressing that strength that you built throughout the year. It's a thing that they don't understand, that peaking is a concept of showing your strength, which
Hmm.
is that's a problem I've seen, because the competitions are like so strung together, and the mindset is just like, you should just be ready to hit your max any day, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. I think what I mean, I'm not exactly an expert of like being able to like change complete cultures, right? But I
Hmm.
think if how aware or how aware of the harms are people with PEDs in India?
I don't think a lot of people are well capable of understanding. It's the usual thing, right? Like, people live in extremes,
Hmm.
where, like, to some degree, some people will be like, it doesn't matter, it's not going to do much, like, my body can take it, my body can handle it, and then they just blast it. And then
Yeah.
there will be people who will be like, oh, it's the worst thing ever, I should never ever get into it.
Hmm.
So there is, as you said, like, the awareness and education part is missing in a lot of things. And if people understood, like, you could get to those numbers, especially the numbers that are there in India, right? Because, like, the best total we have here is like 850 across all weight classes, like even 120 plus. So it's not out of reach. I mean, if I can total like 740 something with like barely training and barely sleeping, then I'm sure there are people out there who can do it naturally if they train properly. You know what I mean? Like, I'm pretty sure, and I've coached people to that degree. I've coached a guy to 800 naturally. And then after that, whatever, he decided to do his own thing. That's a different
Hmm.
story. But I know
Yeah.
for a fact, like, the guy reached 800 naturally. And then I have another guy at 93 who's very capable of doing 800 naturally, because India is still like growing there. Like, I know 800 at 93 is not like a big deal outside, but
Hmm.
like, for us, that's like the first stepping stone towards that 900 at 93. So it's like, I have a 74 who's like closing in on 10 times body weight total. So what I'm saying is, like, these people have done it naturally. and there are people, and it's capable of being done because they've been training for the last so many years, that they've been with me for like the last 3 years or whatever, and we've like done consistently good training blocks where it's like a lot of assessment on like what they need, what they need to do to improve, what are their problems, injury management, as you said, which is usually most of it is just load management, right? Like effective load management and understanding what tissues are being stressed based on the feedback that you get from the lifter, and then you make changes in the program, and then you see like, okay, what is giving us a positive stimulus, what is creating a negative problem, and like a negative issue, and then you kind of just adjust and play around with like the program itself. I think that is something that people don't realize. So for example, like if I can think about it, like the 93 guy that I was talking about, his name is Parth, who's gone to Worlds this year, last year actually, 2025. He was in junior Worlds, and he has a deadlift of 330 kilos, right? And he joined me back in 2023 March. So it's been like close to 3 years now. And when he joined me, he was around that 270 kg deadlift mark. And now he's at 330. He's done 330. And recently he's done 320 for 3, which is like, you could put him at like that 340, 345 mark now is what I think he's capable of. So if you think about it, in the last 3 years, the guy has gone from like 270-ish to 340, which is a total of 70 kgs.
Yeah.
In 3 years. And as you said, that's basically what, like 20, 25 a year?
25, yeah, that's 25 a year. And
that's realistic progress.
Yeah, that's really realistic. But I think people need to understand that like drugs are not necessary for that.
You don't need drugs for that.
Regardless of whether you're female, right? Like a female can add 25 kilos on the total a year, right? So if you look at that on individual lifts, that's like 10 on a squat, 10 on a, or maybe 7 on a squat, 12 on a deadlift, and then 5 on a bench, which is like, if you went up to someone and asked you, hey, do you think you can put 5 kilos on your bench? And but it's like, it's very, very possible. But I think it's understand. Yeah, I think from my point of view, I think in terms of creating beliefs, I think there needs to be more accessibility and a louder. It needs to be in people's faces more that there needs to be a harm. There needs to be the discussion of harm. Or that comes with PED use, and that's going to require, contribution from leadership, as well as from a grassroots point of view, it's going to need to come from yourself as a coach, and promoting your athletes to educate themselves more, and taking ownership of how athletes can be exposed to better anti-doping education, right? And then there's also being able to like equip lifters with a better powerlifting education as well, right? And this is one of the reasons why I sort of started my YouTube channel. I feel like there's a little bit of like paywall gatekeeping with regards to certain knowledge about powerlifting programming. It's like the vast majority, apart from a few people, I feel like the vast majority of powerlifting knowledge on YouTube is just beginner stuff, which is great, which is a good start. But I wanted to sort of like throw in all of that interesting nuance and just like get it out there. That's kind of that's kind of like my thing. I think going back to you, I think it might be the case of like, hey, like there's a lot of if you look at the wider website, there's stuff like Adele. There's the Adele course, which is like an anti-doping education platform for everyone involved in sport. So I think it might be useful to like consider doing that yourself, and then promoting that your athletes do it as part of working with you, right? I think if you look at this is what my experience is with British powerlifting, right? And I think British powerlifting is definitely moving towards the right direction. With British powerlifting, in order to participate in a competition, you need a coaching license, right? So it's not just a qualification; it's a coaching license. When you do the coaching courses, the coaching license is separate from the course. When you do your courses, there's a lot of education about anti-doping. when you do the coaching license, you need to, in order to be present in a competition, you need that license, which requires you to do a series of different courses, right?
Right.
Of which one of them is an anti-doping course. Is a coach, like you have to do a course like a Coach Clean course.
Clean.
It's called Coach Clean, right? And so it's very top down, right? You've got all of these systems, and so you almost don't have an excuse of not being educated on best practice and embodying that anti-doping culture, right? So it's very much like ingrained in British powerlifting that, you know, it's a very strong anti-doping culture, you know. And you know, if you look at its the federation's commitment to anti-doping, if you look at the finances are published, like the British the federation finances are published, and you can see how much gets like attributed to anti-doping as well. I think it's you know, when I looked at the numbers like last week, it was something like, I think in 2025. You know, don't take my word for it. You can go on the website and check for yourself.
Right.
You know, they're all published. I think like there was a revenue of like 180,000 in terms of revenue. I think they spent a good 10%, which is still a decent amount. They're 10% of that on anti-doping, on drug testing, right? And you know, drug testing is often published as well, so you can see who's been tested every year. And I can't remember like which website it's on. It might be on the British Powerlifting website. It might be on a wider website or an IPF website. But I'm pretty sure that, you know, positive tests get published, and so there's definitely a name and shame culture.
Yeah.
And then also, you know, there's also a I don't know how people feel about this, but like you can grasp people up, you can snitch people up, you can report people if you suspect anti-doping as well. Like there are definitely like pathways for that. So there's definitely an anti-doping like culture, but it's also systemic. There are like many reasons why we've managed to preserve this anti-doping culture. Look, you know, one thing I will say is like I get the idea that, you know, drug tested is not the same as drug free, and no system in the world is going to be perfect, right? But yeah, that's I don't think that's a reason why we don't try. Does that make sense? And I think if you think about like, why do we do sport anyways, right? Like sporting for a lot of people is going to be their the means to be healthy. Does that make sense? Like, you know, for some people, powerlifting might be a hobby, but like, you know, do you really want a population to participate in sport and like be massively involved in like you know, harmful drug use? You probably don't want that, right? You probably want to use sport as a way to promote a healthy lifestyle as well. But yeah, so yeah, those are my sort of thoughts on it.
And then another thing that like I like to add on to that is like when you talk about health, like it's also about mental health for a lot of people. A lot of people get into like any kind of resistance training, like whether it's bodybuilding, powerlifting, whatever it is. A good number of people get into it because they want to deal with some other insecurity or some kind of emotional this thing that they go through. Because a lot of good lifters, like strong lifters, their reason for why comes a lot from like some trauma from the past. It's something that I've seen. Like for example, I was watching Kieran Lee and Anthony McNaughton. Both have a history of like having lost their mothers and or something of that sort. So they have like, for them it means a lot to come from that, right? And they found a healthy way to put themselves out there and like channel their whatever grief, trauma, whatever you want to talk like whatever you want to call it. Like they found a healthy way to channel into it. And when you start, and it's a thing that a lot of people just don't talk about, like especially when you talk about steroids and healthy, right? It's not just the physical aspects, but I've seen like people get really, really messed up mentally because you're playing around with hormones. It's not normal to play around with hormones. When you start tweaking like hormones around, it needs a shit ton of like extra work to keep everything in balance. And 99% of the time, they are not balanced individuals. It's not a thing that people realize because they're probably not like, they probably think that it's normal to behave that way, but it's not normal to behave like that. Because I've seen people who have been on PEDs and they become very suicidal.
Yeah.
And it's not like a good thing to be. I've seen like they're not happy individuals.
Yeah.
They might look strong, they might
Yeah.
look big, they might look like on social media, they might have this persona and like they might be entertaining on social media, but they're leading very horrible lives.
Yeah.
It's a genuine thing. Like people might not
Yeah.
believe me when I say
Yeah.
that. So it's a thing that like when you see these people, right, like you can be super strong without taking steroids and
Yeah.
also be happy with your life. It's not like you have to
Yeah.
sacrifice your mental health or your emotional state and
Yeah.
like your relationships in life, because I've seen that with
Yeah.
people. They really ruin everything around them when they
Yeah.
start getting onto stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's yeah. I think that probably needs to be spoken about quite a bit more,
Yeah,
because it's like, because it now becomes a thing of like, oh, the PEDs are a crutch,
yeah. I've seen it.
right? So
Like
it's
I've
like,
seen like boys as young as 14, 15 years old coming to me saying that, well, my gym owner told me that I need to get on steroids. What do you
yeah,
think? And I'm like, no way. You're
yeah,
14, 15 years old. Like I
yeah,
get it if you're a fully functioning adult,
yeah,
you're earning your own money, you're living your life, and then you
yeah,
feel like you want to get on it. That's fine. It's
yeah,
your choice. I'm never
yeah,
gonna say like, oh, you shouldn't do something. That's your choice. As long as you're not
yeah,
harming somebody else, I feel like it's not a problem. But like
yeah,
that's a thing, right? Like when it comes to things like this and alcoholism, they don't just harm you. It's a thing
yeah.
that people don't realize.
I mean, my opinion on that, and this might be a little bit controversial. Well, it's not really controversial. This is just my opinion on it. It's like, I I think about culture, right? Because
Mm,
you know what you do is most likely going to revert to the meme, the culture around you,
mm,
and I feel
mm.
like the I would still discourage people from taking PEDs. I wouldn't
Yeah.
even I wouldn't even say, hey, if you want to take PEDs, it's your choice. Because
Mm,
if someone takes PEDs by the by the observation that someone is taking PEDs, they're giving someone else permission to take PEDs because he's doing it,
right.
right?
Mm,
So I would say there is harm in allowing liberty um,
mm,
for people taking PEDs. I would just actively discourage it, because if someone
mm,
takes
mm.
PEDs, another person taking PEDs, then like, oh, it's like, well, they're taking PEDs, so it must be okay, right? Yeah. So
Right, right.
I think that so much of culture is what like it normalizes. Does that
No,
make
I,
sense?
I I
So
I agree
yeah,
with what you're saying. Like because
yeah,
see, I have a strong stance as well,
yeah,
but to some degree, it's just like some people will be like, I mean, it's my choice, it's my body, it's my wish. So I'm just like, you know what? If that's
oh
your
yeah,
choice,
yeah. Like,
yeah,
yeah, if people, yeah, if people are going to do it, and
yeah,
you know, like I wouldn't physically stop people, and you know, at the end of the day,
yeah,
people,
yeah. Of course.
you know, you're not going to be able to like, well, you shouldn't physically stop someone from doing something, but it should still be discouraged. I think it needs to start from like, you know, start from the individual. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think if you know, at the end of the day, if you my sort of opinion is, it, you know, for your position, if you want to fight anti-doping culture, I think you just need to sort of build a um you know, a group of athletes that really do well long term, and they become, well, not household names, but like they become like names that people recognize in the industry.
I mean
And
that's
then
been
yeah,
my that's been my sorry, but like
yeah,
that's been my thing. Like what do you call it? Like
goal,
from day one, a
yeah,
very simple solution to the whole
yeah,
situation is that you make it happen and then you show it it's possible.
yeah,
That's the
yeah,
thing that I've had. So like I've always had this idea that either I do it myself, which is
yeah,
difficult for me when I'm handling so many lifters and like I don't
yeah,
have my sleep on check and all of that.
yeah,
And I can't even train like as regularly as I want to. But
yeah,
then like when I have the kind of roster that I have, when I want to look at it, I want to look at it like I want to have all the best lifters so that
yeah,
then I can show it to more people that look, this is possible.
yeah,
Like that's my main like idea behind it. It's a thing that I've spoken about for a while actually. Recently
yeah,
a friend of mine actually shared that with me, where like it was a conversation I had like 7 years ago, where I was like, one day I'm going to have a roster like that. And then
mm,
he sent that to me recently and he was like, I see you doing that right now.
yeah,
So it's a thing that I've spoken about for like years. Is you
yeah,
need to make that happen, where you have a roster or like you have a good number of, like you said, like, household names to some
Yeah.
degree, it
Yeah.
is required, because then people will look up to them and be like, hey man, if this guy has done it naturally, I think I'm going to try doing that. Because then that's where people get the inspiration from, right? They look at someone else, and then
Hmm.
they're like, oh, that guy did it, so I think I can also do it.
Mm.
And that's also why I think the culture in India is like very different, is that a good number of people who have done it to some degree have gotten caught. That's the reason why people don't have that belief
Mm.
in the first place, that it's possible naturally. Like you said, um, you need to have like that naming and shaming thing that you were talking about, where
Hmm.
like in the UK, when somebody gets caught, they are actually named and shamed for it. In India, you don't see that happen. If a lifter is caught for it, there is some outrage for a very short period of time, but then there is not much after that. People just kind of
Yeah.
just
Get
forget
on
it,
with
and
it.
then they're like, they just get on with it. They're just like, oh yeah, this guy's a great lifter, it's fine. But
Yeah.
like, you need to make sure that that person is not allowed to compete anymore again. That's my
Mm.
opinion. Like,
Yeah.
unless and until they have a genuine case, because I remember that in the US there was only one such case where a guy got caught, and he
Mm.
was able to prove that his supplements actually were tainted, and they
Mm.
also found out that the where like they were manufacturing, there was actually a leakage
Yeah.
of like PEDs into it. That was the
Yeah.
only one case I remember which is actually legit. So he proved
Yeah.
himself that he did not do that on purpose. In that case, it's okay,
Yeah.
right? But like in every other case, I would say, like, if you are caught with anything like this and you don't have a legitimate reason like that, that's just like, you should get a lifetime ban. That's my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, like I think it takes quite a lot for you to get a lifetime ban. I think generally
Yeah,
speaking, the default is like 2 to 4 years. But like
I mean,
if it's an anabolic, then it's already like, yeah, you already got permanent benefits from it if you've taken
yeah,
it before,
exactly.
which
That's
is
another thing a lot of
problematic.
people just don't understand, because the like solely from a like that muscle memory, muscle nuclear aspect,
Yeah.
you already have taken advantage
These
of the
satellite cells.
anabolic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
satellite cells. You already have an advantage of that. It's not like you've done a cycle and then you've lost the whole thing. It's not
Yeah.
like that. So when you've done like legitimate proper cycles, you
Yeah.
actually carry that forward. You're never natural again.
Yeah.
You can't claim to be natural again. You can't claim to be that. You can say that I've been off for the last couple of years, something like that, but you can never say that you're natural anymore,
Yeah.
because
You're
you're
not a
still
lifetime
carrying.
natural.
Yeah, you're and people don't understand. See, there's huge emphasis on this part, because people will be like, it's not a big deal, he did a couple of cycles and then he stopped, it's not a big deal. It is
Yeah.
a big deal if you
Yeah.
want to compete in tested, because then you're
Yeah.
competing against somebody who has a disadvantage. And like, you like, if you want to go ahead, just go compete in federations that allow it. There are
Mm.
That's the good thing about powerlifting, right? That you have the choice to either go compete in tested
Yeah.
or in untested. You have that
Yeah.
choice. So
Yeah.
just make that right choice. Don't like get into this part of the sport where people are, it can be any reason. Some people have that moral boundary where they're like, for moral reasons, they don't want to take whatever it is. Or some people are just too scared. It doesn't matter what the reason is. There's a reason why tested and untested should be separated.
Yeah.
And
Is
it's
it,
just
are
fair.
there, out of curiosity, are there non-tested federations in India?
Yeah, there are.
Not as popular?
They are not popular clout wise.
Yeah. Fine.
So that's one more reason why I think a lot of the untested lifters want to come here, because they know that this is where you get the most amount of public eye, and this
Yeah.
is where you get most amount of what's it called, like sponsorships or anything of that
Yeah.
sort, if they're looking for that. So
Yeah.
that's where I get it. Like that's where they come from.
Yeah.
But that's on the federations to organize and do better, the untested side. And honestly speaking, in the untested side, there are these unsanctioned meets
Yeah.
that do have prize pools. So from
Yeah.
a monetary aspect, it's actually more lucrative there.
Yeah.
To be honest, like they
Yeah.
do that. They do have these competitions where they're like prize pool of this much money, and then they're like the winner gets a bike, a motorcycle, or
Yeah.
something like that. They have things like this. Yeah. They have things like this going on. So they do have certain unsanctioned meets which are not like federation related. But if you
Yeah.
just want to go compete, just go compete there, right? Because
Yeah.
it's an even playing field for everybody.
Yeah.
And the worst thing that I've seen with Indian powerlifting,
Yeah.
with respect to the steroid, like the PEDs aspect, is the
Yeah.
usage of something called as termin and AMP.
What's that?
Uh,
What is that?
Termin. Termin and AMP. Termin and AMP injections are like pure adrenaline shots.
Oh my God.
So if
Okay.
you like, I don't know the full form. Let me just type it out here. So AMP is adenosine monophosphate,
Fine.
and it's basically used to support your energy metabolism, your and so like blood circulation, and it like really helps you recover really fast. So usually what people do, and I've seen this in competitions. Okay, people think that it's a joke, but I'll tell you, any national will know you can't. If you hit an RPE 10 squat, there is
Yeah.
no way you're loading 30 kgs on the bar and hitting that at an RPE 7.
Yeah.
Any lifter will know that that kind of a thing is going to take you at least a year of training to get, at least I'm saying
Yeah.
at least a
Yeah,
year
yeah.
of training to get there. But
Yeah.
this thing can get you to do it in the next attempt.
Yeah.
And from what I understand, this is something that's given to race horses.
Jesus.
Yes. And there are a lot of people who actually die because the heart can't handle that kind of a thing.
Yeah, you're not
I mean,
supposed
if you think, yeah, you're not supposed to. It's not meant for human beings in the first place. I mean, like, it's not meant for that kind of a usage. See, if you think about it, it's like you are using something like that before you go for the comp. You're obviously going to get on some kind of a pre-workout or some
Yeah.
kind of caffeine, right? Like that's the
Yeah.
that's the least normal thing that powerlifters do. Like,
What's
people,
the
that's
point? It's like, you know, with all that harm that comes by, yeah, I definitely think there needs to be a lot more. Do people not think like, oh yeah, someone died from that, I'm not going to do that? Like, but people still do it.
Oh yeah, I think a lot of people, like I said, they have that thing where they live on extremes, where they're just
Yeah.
like, they feel like, well, his body couldn't handle it, mine will.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people have that kind of
It's
a
called
mindset.
optimism bias.
Yeah, they feel like
yeah.
they're special.
Yeah. Everyone
feel
has
like they're
that's why
special,
people
yeah.
buy the lottery, right? Like this is why
Yeah.
people buy lottery tickets, because they think that
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
going to be the one who wins it.
The ones who wins it. But
Yeah.
like, see, with lottery, at least it's like you're losing a little bit of money and maybe it's not that harmful. But this
Yeah.
can cost you your actual life.
Yeah.
That's the thing that people don't understand. Like, I've seen a lot of people. So for example, I've seen a guy who deadlifted 310 and the guy struggled. Like, that was an RP 10 grinder. And then he goes to the washroom, injects himself, comes back, puts on 330, and then he moves it at RP 7. Like, I've seen that happen. But then you should see how these people are after the competition. They are like zooted out of their minds. They're gone. Like, you go and tell them, like, I mean, obviously, when you see somebody lift like that, you're gonna go and be like, man, that was crazy, good lift, right?
Yeah.
Like, you go and say that, you go congratulate them. They are lost. They don't even respond to you anymore because they're so gone. Like, you go and say, man, nice lift, that was a good lift. They just look at you like that and they'll be like, and then just walk away because they're so lost. And it's a thing I've seen. It's not like I saw one guy in my first competition ever back in 2017. I did this competition. It was not like a powerlifting meet. It was like a local like a fun competition kind of a thing. So I was just like, let me just go do it. And at that competition, I saw a guy do that, and I thought he was gonna die. Like, the guy took it before his like squat attempt or something, and he just collapsed, and he wasn't responding. And I was so scared because I was like, I don't know if this man's gonna die or what.
Man, that's pretty depressing. Like,
but that's so common. That's such a common thing.
Here's the thing, right? Is this promoted by the coaches?
Oh yeah. That's the problem.
And
like, a lot of the
coaches not realize the harm?
They do, but like even see, I'll tell you how bad it is. I'll give you an example. Like, from a powerlifting perspective, right? People want to get competitive, and then other people are taking. So it's kind of like, oh, if they're taking, you also need to take because you need to match up to the competition, stuff like that. I have seen very, very like general trainers, like general coaches, the normal personal trainers. If a client comes to them and they say, I want to lose like 10 kilos of body weight in the next 3 months, they put them on clenbuterol.
Jesus.
And they put them on clen, or they put them on some kind of oral, because you can get away with oral, right? Because, like, see, when you go to a regular person, you say you have to take this injection. A regular person is going to be wary of it because they're like, injection, that sounds weird.
Yeah.
Right. But then when you give them a tablet and then you say, this is just a regular supplement, it's like mints, just pop it. You're
Yeah.
going to be like, okay, cool. I guess my trainer told me to take it. Right.
Yeah.
So they do that because they want to enhance fat loss. So what happens is that when you go to a trainer and you're like, I want to lose 10 kilos or 20 kilos in this short period of time, and the
Mhm.
trainer puts you on stuff like this, and then you see physical changes so fast, you're going to be like, oh, my trainer's amazing. Let me recommend another 3 people to him. You see what I mean? And then, so that's how a lot of Indian trainers actually function. There are very few of them who will be like, let's focus on behavioral changes. Let's get you to
Mm.
stop doing this. Okay, what time do you sleep? I want you to make sure that you have a wind down time.
Mm.
Go to bed at this time. Eat these things. Make sure that you're coming to the gym. Make sure that you're walking these many steps. These are all like very like rare to see. Not like
Mm.
rare, but it's like it's not the norm.
Mm.
Is what I'm saying. So there are a lot of cases where even at a general level, not even powerlifting, not even bodybuilding, where you will see people coming for fat loss, general fat loss, and they'll be like, you know what, take this thing. And from what I understand, orals are something that are much more toxic than injections.
Yeah, I think
This
a
is
lot of them can be. I think clenbuterol is something that bodybuilders use, no?
yeah.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
is
As far as
it
I know,
something
that's
that's
what it's for.
readily available in a pharmacy?
I think so. Yes.
Yeah.
So because as far as I know,
yeah.
like something like test and I've heard of Anova, Dianabol, and Test and Clen being like very openly this thing available,
Accessible.
accessible.
Yeah.
Yeah. So because see, even for kids, right? Like as I said, even if it's just children who are like 16 years old who are interested in powerlifting, if you
Yeah.
go to a local coach and then you're like, hey, I want to get into powerlifting,
Yeah.
the local coach is your only guide, right? That's your first guy.
Yeah.
And you always have this understanding or culture that the teacher is your right. You just have to follow whatever the teacher says.
Mm.
You don't want to question them too much. You just want to put your faith in them, right? So when they say just take these tablets, there is no questioning of it
Mm.
as much as something like like an injection. Because when somebody says I want you to inject something, then they'll get wary about it. They'll be like, ah, shit, man, I don't know, an injection,
Yeah.
that sounds scary. And most
Yeah.
people are scared of needles, right?
Yeah.
So they don't get into it. So it's a thing I've seen with kids where like the kids are like, I don't know, my trainer gave me these tablets, I don't know what they're, and I'm like, yo, those are steroids.
Yeah.
That's not something you should be taking.
I think one of the things that you probably need to I don't know what your sort of connections are like, but I definitely think there needs to be like one voice is going to create some impact. But I think there definitely needs to be a grouping of people with the similar mindset coming together.
I see
And
that
really,
happening a lot
yeah,
with the newer generation. So I
yeah,
have some hope there. Like in the newer
yeah,
generation kids and all, they are a
yeah,
little bit more interested in like, oh, what can I learn? What book should I read? Stuff like that. But they can put more effort because, like what I notice is like people feel like they're going to be spoon fed when they come and ask you stuff.
yeah.
Right? It's not like that, and it's a thing that I've noticed like in mentorships or anything. Like even something that you do, because I know Jay works with you with respect to like one-on-one mentorship calls, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't provide the solution.
Mm.
You don't spoon feed it. You tell him how to think.
Mm.
That's the thing that I've seen with a lot of mentorship, which is why a lot of people will not do well with these mentorships because they don't like that. They don't like that you don't give them an answer. Like if I come and it's like that classic, I have back pain, what should I do? And you're like, so what happened? I want context. And then
Yeah,
they're like, I don't know what context you want, man. Just tell me what to do for my back pain.
yeah,
So they want just the solution, but they don't want to put in the effort to explain and then see and then understand. You know what I
yeah,
mean? So it's very similar that way. When you tell them like, I want you to go read these thing books, these things, these books, go and do these courses, they'll just be like, do I have to? I mean, if you want to
yeah,
be good, yeah.
yeah.
If you want to be good, you should.
But I think this is where like the discussion of standards come into play. It's like, well, do you want to have high standards or low standards?
Yeah.
Right. And what is the price of having high standards? Work.
Yeah.
You know.
That's the thing
And
that a lot of people don't understand.
I'm more than happy to if someone comes to me with a problem and they don't want to be autonomous, right? If you want to be able to operate by yourself, you need to learn how to think. But if you just want me to give you a solution, like I'll give you that solution, but I'm gonna like context of what's going on, right? So it really depends on like, hey, it's like this, right? Like do you have a coach?
Yeah.
Right, you have a coach.
Yeah.
It's like, but you also coach at the same time. So you operate in a way where like you want someone else to do the work, do the thinking for your lifting.
Right.
You want to outsource that. But you
Yes.
also want to be equipped to be able to do this for other people at the same time, right?
Yes.
That's why you're a coach and an athlete. But some people
Yes.
just want to be told what to do and just get on with it. Some people don't care about being able to like create the solutions by themselves. Some people do, right? This is why you do have self-coached lifters. Some lifters are they want to be able to have that control. They want to be able to have that agency. Does it make sense? So it really depends on the personality. But I do think most people like to outsource their thinking. This is the reason why we have all of these like health and nutrition, health and fitness influencers that are so flawed in some of the ideas that they have. But people want to be able to almost like worship someone, you know, and just like outsource it. It really depends on, you know, on the personality. I guess it's you know, it's a very common thing that you see. People want to outsource their thinking.
I think outsourcing
it happens
the thinking outsourcing the thinking. See, like outsourcing your thinking when you're the athlete is definitely like it's okay. What I'm saying is like there are people who want to be coaches, but they don't want to understand the process of thinking because you can't be a good coach if you don't think.
Oh yeah, no. If you you need to be able to to be an effective coach, you need to be able to problem solve, and problem solving is thinking. Right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Otherwise,
like, coaching is basically just problem solving.
Yeah,
that's a lot. That's the thing that a lot of people don't get.
It's the difference between a cook and a chef.
Yeah.
Right, a cook just follows orders. A chef can like create, use their creativity to come up with solutions. Does that make sense?
And that's basically what a coach is, right? Like a good coach. Like you know, if you put it in that way, it's like that's the difference between a trainer and a coach. A trainer will just sit there and make you do some exercise and then count reps for you. But a coach is going to like actually figure out what the problem is, why it's happening, design a program and a program around it, and then pace you in like different training blocks so that we can continue to progress towards your goals. That's and while like they can, and I think in today's day and age, you have to be proactive with understanding biomechanics and physiotherapy to some basic degree with your lifters so that they are not erring on the line of injury, because longevity is a thing. And while most of your programming and injury management is recovery and load management for sure, there is definitely a biomechanical aspect of it, which is why all good coaches now are people who are well equipped with understanding the basic biomechanical models and being able to integrate. Because like, see, when I say programming, it means everything. Right, it takes into lifter leverages into account, it takes lifter recovery into account, takes lifter everything, movement into account, then movement competencies into account, and then that's how you build a program. Right, there are certain movements that you use purely for hypertrophy, and then there are certain movements that you be like, oh, this guy doesn't have range of motion access to certain places, so we'll add something else here so that they can get better. Because it's like once you have range of motion access, you're able to express that strength even better. It's not like you don't need hypermobility. That's not the thing, but you need to have enough mobility to be able to express that, right? Because if you're like on the way down on the bench, for example, if you're having a lot of trouble, you're feeling stuck just 1 inch off and you can't pause properly and you're feeling stuck, that's when you need to address that problem so that you can you know, effectively just go down and press back up, because you don't want to think at heavy loads like, oh, I'm not able to touch my chest, right? You know what I mean? So, and then same thing with squat depth. If you have depth issues, then you kind of figure out like where they're lacking, right? So every single coach in today's day and age has to be equipped with these things. And it takes effort and knowledge. It's a thing that I've seen that people don't want to put into, like, I've seen a lot of people come to me and say, I want to be a coach, but like, what should I read? And then I'll be like, I want you to go through these things. And they'll say, okay. And then 6 months later, they'll come back and they'll be like, what should I do next? And I'll be like, did you read the stuff that I told you to before? They'll be like, no. Then where do you want to go next? how are you going to go next? Where, like, there's no way forward, because if you are not learning the basics, there is no way you'll catch up onto what's happening next.
Yeah, I'm surprised that there are not courses from the federation. Are there courses that
Oh
exist?
yeah, no. The
That
federation
probably, yeah.
doesn't. Yeah, they don't do that. But there are like enough. I think there are enough places nowadays where you can see. In my opinion, from what I've understood, right, there is enough stuff online for free to the
Yeah.
point where you can, at the very least, understand good programming and periodization strategies and models.
Hmm.
There is enough.
Yeah.
Especially if you go through something like your channel is one great resource, and then there's channels like Steve Dinovi, PS
Steve
Performance.
Novick,
He,
PR's
yeah,
performance. Yeah.
he's got a good
Good
one.
channel. Yeah.
There's that recently, if I remember, there's this guy called Sam Friedrich who talks a little bit about like programming, and then he talks about 3-day, 4-day, 5-day templates, how you
Mhm.
can adjust things. I mean, you have things like that nowadays. We never had stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I
There
like
is
they don't
definitely a
want
lot of
to.
information out there. Yeah.
Yeah. You just have to understand how to navigate through what is useful information for you,
Mhm.
and then try to stay away from there's like abundance of info, so
Mm.
you kind of want to navigate through like what's useful for you, and then stay away from like what stuff that you might not need.
Yeah.
Because there's always different rabbit holes you can go down through, right? There's like that whole extreme optimization rabbit hole, and then there's like that PRI
Yeah.
rabbit hole. They're all useful to some degree. It's not like they're
Yeah.
useless, but like you don't want to
It's
get into
about,
that rabbit hole and
yeah. Yeah. You don't, the thing is, everything has its place. You just need to know
yes,
what context it becomes
yes,
useful. Does it make
yes,
sense?
exactly.
Um,
Yeah.
and I think, yeah, I think a lot of, the difficult, I also think one of the reasons why, and this is just based on my experience with mentoring some other coaches, a lot of reasons why they have a tough time um, making decisions for themselves is actually being taught how to make decisions. I think using the idea of using mental models, the idea of having like a framework for thinking, like having like rules of thumb, is not talked about. You can have knowledge,
Mm.
but knowing how to apply knowledge is also
Yeah.
it's a separate skill. Like education is very useful. It can equip you. If you give a workman like all the tools in the world, but he doesn't know how
Right.
to use them, like it's
Yeah.
going to be useless. And I think
Useless.
this is probably one of those things that people don't talk about enough. And I will say, like, I've been mentored myself, and I would still say that, like, even being mentored myself, I had to accidentally stumble on certain resources outside of powerlifting
Yes.
to appreciate, oh, like, you know, um, how to use knowledge and apply it. I think, I definitely, like to use, I like to learn. I think that the skill of being an effective powerlifting coach
Mhm.
is, a part of that is being an effective problem solver. And so
Yes.
if you think about like the best problem solvers in the world, some of these, if you listen to some of these sort of like business CEOs, people
Mhm.
like Elon Musk and that, like they often talk about using mental models and using like principles of or people like Ray Dalio, they talk about using principles and
Mhm.
mental models of navigating like a very complex world, right? Because there
Yep.
is a little bit of complexity to biology, right? There is a bit
Yes.
of
Yes.
complexity with biomechanics and
Mm.
programming, but it's like, okay, how do we make sense of this so that you can make at least an effective decision, right?
Right.
um and yeah, and I think people need to focus on being able to do that. Like, how do we just like create effective solutions for athletes before we even go down the route of being efficient, right?
Right. Yeah.
Because there's so much. Yeah, like a lot of people use Instagram as education. The problem with
Yeah.
Instagram is that
Yeah.
people like to go through trends, and trends, things like pacing, things like the golden microcycle and stuff like that. It's like they're all useful, but they're tools for efficiency. It's like, can you even create an effective program before you even come up with an efficient program, right?
Yep.
So these are sort of the things that I think about.
I think that's a very good point that you brought up. Like the first effective programming, that's basically what every single coach does. That's kind of what that's basically what every single coach does with respect to whenever they get a new athlete, is that they take athlete training history and they take a look at what has worked, what hasn't worked, and then they create an effective program first.
Yeah.
Which is
it doesn't need
kind
to
of
be
something,
like optimal. Like,
yeah, it's not going to be
optimal.
optimal, right? Yeah. And optimality is something that will always exist
Come later
within
on.
something. Yeah, it's something that exists within practicality as well. Just because pendulum squats are optimal, and if you don't have it, it's not something to sweat about.
Yeah.
Like people will go like, if you don't have pendulum squats, you're not training your quads optimally. There's no way, you're not getting the best out of it. It's okay, you can just go do a leg press. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
If you don't have, I mean, that's what I mean. Like, if you don't have it, don't sweat it.
Yeah.
You don't have to be like, I can't be the greatest ever because I don't have a pendulum squat. A lot of world champions have become from like without having a lot of stuff. So it's not like you can be very, very effective. And if I'm not wrong, there was some, I think Data Driven did this thing where they talked about how recently there's been a lot of this optimization talk, optimization of hypertrophy. And they talked a little bit about how there's only like a 2% or 3% difference with respect to effective hypertrophy and optimal hypertrophy. And the difference is not even visually clear. So they were it really doesn't.
I think the problem that also comes with that is that people program hop a lot and they don't have consistency because they're never they're never certain whether what they're doing is the best thing for them. It's like the best thing for you is actually the thing that you can stick to long term. So it's like not knowing that, I like to put a lot more emphasis on enjoying the program. It's like, do you even like your program?
Oh yeah,
like,
for sure.
Forget about how effective it is. Do you even like it? Because if you don't like it, even if it's optimal, theoretically, you're not going to do it, right? So
and this also brings sorry to cut you off. Like, this also brings me to that point of like, I've seen people bashing adherence a lot, where they're like, you don't want to do that? Oh, are you a little child? It's in a lot of cases, it's not about being a little child or not. And enjoyment, of course, is one honestly a very big aspect, because a lot of people completely underestimate what amount of intent and effort a person puts into something when they actually enjoy it. That is one thing. But the second thing that you need to understand is that, is it even practically possible with the lifestyle that they lead? So that's another part of adherence. When you talk about adherence, this also is a part, like when you talk about enjoyment, right? That's why it brought me to this adherence part. Like, can the person even go to the gym those many days, spend that much time and actually do it? And are they doing it in a way where they're actually having fun to some degree? Of course, like SBD work is SBD work. At the end of the day, it gets boring. It gets monotonous at some point. There's always going to be something like that. But like, to some degree, are you enjoying it enough to be able to go and put in the intent and the effort that you need to be putting in? It's a thing that I was noticing a lot with all of these Sheffield competitors, because a lot of these people were posting their vlogs, Road to Sheffield. Anthony McNaughton called it Final Destination, and Austin Perkins was posting every single training session. Emil Krustev was posting every single training session. If you watch their thing, right, like, they show up each day. I think that's what sets apart a really, really good lifter versus a mediocre one. I think a lot of people confuse consistency, and the definition of consistency is wrong. That's what I feel. So I'll explain what I think. Because a lot of people think consistency means showing up, those 4 days, 5 days, 6 days of the week to the gym, and then following the plan, and then going back home. But what consistency is that showing up at the gym and following the plan is the bare minimum you need to do to push yourself towards successful pathway towards your goals, right? That is the bare minimum. The real consistency that I feel is that the way you're showing up for your sessions and the way you're actually executing with intent with each and every set and rep. It's a thing I noticed with someone like Anthony McNaughton and Austin Perkins. Every single thing that they do, it looks the same. You see the squat warm-up from the bar, like 70 kilos, 120, 170, 220, all the way up to the top set. It looks the exact same. And a lot of people don't understand that consistency comes also from not tweaking and making changes in technique and program. So when you talk about, sorry, go on.
Letting it run its course, basically.
You let
Yeah,
it run its course. So any kind of technique, any kind of this thing, it has to be consistent. Because I see this all the time, where like I have lifters who like they nail the technique in like
yeah,
one session, and then you're
yeah,
like, oh, you got it, man. Don't change this now.
yeah, yeah,
But then they start like screwing with it a little bit here and there, and then they
yeah,
lose that technique, and then now they can't get a feel of it again.
yeah,
So you essentially what happens is like you have one training block that went really well because your tech was so solidified, right? And as a coach, when you tell somebody don't change it, they really need to listen to that, because
yeah,
that tech run over like another 6 blocks is going to lead to really good numbers.
yeah,
But if you change that tech now, we are not being consistent anymore. We are going to
yeah,
the gym from block to block, but we're
yeah,
not being consistent itself. You know what I mean?
yeah, 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 yeah,
So it's a thing that I've seen. Like, for example, I've had lifters who have like a very excellent squat pattern, and then they suddenly start changing, and now they've forgotten what midfoot feels like.
yeah,
And now again, we're trying to like fish around and play around and be like, oh, we want more heel pressure, we want more toe
yeah,
pressure, and then
yeah,
they're like, I'm not able to understand. So while you are going to the gym and you are putting in effort for like
mm,
that amount of time, it's not
mhm,
effective because you've made these changes that were
yeah,
unnecessary to begin with.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
a
yeah,
thing that I've noticed.
yeah. It's definitely a thing, and it's. I think it's just a thing where like the coach just needs to put things into perspective for the athlete.
Mm.
Um, because the athletes don't, they make spontaneous decisions and come up with spontaneous ideas,
Mm,
and
mm, mm, mm.
and it's just like they don't see like, okay, where does this decision, um, where is this idea like in the grand perspective? Like, is there going to be a positive trade-off or a negative trade-off, right? Like,
Mm,
I think
mm.
I think there's a case to pivot. There's always a reason to like change certain things, but
Yes,
actually, is it going to be a net Is it going to be a net positive? I mean, that's the
right.
thing that you need to ask. Um, oh, just heads up, we might need to round this off in the next couple minutes.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, yeah,
So I think we can little bit. Let's talk about the
yeah,
numbers aspect, because
yeah,
like before we did this, I want you to like touch up a little bit on the numbers that like you've seen your athletes hit naturally,
yeah,
and if you could talk a little bit about some of the guys that in the UK, because you're more involved in the UK this thing.
yeah,
So a little bit more of the guys at the top in the UK, like somebody like Ajay, for example.
yeah.
Uh,
I think if you, I mean, like, I think age. I mean, I don't coach AJ. It was his
yeah,
coach is Lawrence Farncombe.
yes,
But if you look at his numbers, he's been competing for a while. He's been competing since 2018,
yeah.
right?
That's when I first noticed him. Yeah.
Like if you look at his numbers, he's obviously a super heavyweight.
Hmm.
Um, and so like his very first total, when he competed was like 800, and he's basically cracked 1,000 kilos, which is
Yep.
like 25%,
Yeah,
25%
yeah,
across 7 years, right?
yeah. Hmm.
Well, that's 200 kilos across uh 200 kilos across 7 years. So what's that mass wise? Um, so that's like 100 kilos over 3 years, which is about 30 kilos a
Yeah,
year,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like it's like, regardless of what weight class it is, 30 kilos on your total is like super
Yeah,
possible.
yeah, it is very possible.
Like, yeah, don't get me wrong. Genetics plays a part with where you start off, but in terms of the rate of progress, it's like it's not out of the, you know, um, it's not it's not out of the ordinary, right?
Yeah, yeah. And
If
also
you,
it's not like just because you started off a little on the lower end doesn't mean that you can't reach high.
yeah,
Because like a lot of people like to think, like for example in Ajay's case, like he started off at 800, so he got to 1,000. That's a possibility. But there are a lot of people who start at 400, 500, and they still go up to like 800, 900.
yeah. I'll use one of my own lifters as an example,
Yes.
right? So, I've got one of my 74 guys. He's been a 74 his whole life. He started off. I started. He started lifting when he was 20. I think I started working with him when he was 21. I've worked with him for 3 years now.
Hmm.
And his very first total was 500. Right, so
Hmm.
he's got 170 squat, which is super realistic, 130 bench, which is super realistic, and 202 kilo deadlift.
Yeah.
And in the span of what's that?
3 years, three and a
3
half.
years, right? He's
Yeah,
he's
like three
put
and a half years.
180 kilos, 190
Yeah.
kilos, 180 kilos. Let's say 180, right?
Hmm.
180 kilos. I mean, that's probably like towards the higher end of. Um,
Yeah, I mean that's still like 35,
yeah,
40.
that's well, no, that's closer to. Hold on, it's 180 divided by 3. That's like 60,
No, it's like 3.5 years.
3.5
Because like
years.
his last meet
180
was in December, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And the first
So
meet that he did was in 22 of March. So there's another extra like 8 months, 9 months of time. So
yeah,
it's
so
actually closer to 4 years than 3 years.
yeah. So 4 years divided by 180 kilos.
It's more like 40 something.
Yeah, it's like 40 something kilos, and
Oh,
that's
yeah,
probably like if you get 40 kilos in total, that's pretty decent. You know,
yeah. That is.
I definitely do think that like so much like if you think about like all of these little things that you do,
Mm,
it's like the lifestyle that you have, the attitude you have to your training, right?
mm,
Your genetics does play a part, but I would say like your genetics probably determines where you are, where you start, rather than like how far you go.
yeah, yeah.
And just how conscientious you are, right? And you know, he's obviously someone who's like what's the word? Very disciplined, right? His
Mm,
his attitude, he doesn't he's Scott is someone who is very low on a scale of neuroticism. So he
mm,
doesn't
mm,
self-sabotage his training too frequently.
mm,
Right. Like if you neuroticism in sport is definitely a thing, right? Like it's definitely shown to be a thing that's quite detrimental for sporting performance. Right.
mm.
So if you're conscientious enough
Yeah,
and you keep yourself organized enough, you're just going to go through less problems in life that derail you in your training, right?
right.
And if you can like manage that well, like you'll be surprised with how like strong you can get.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You
Like
know,
for like, I'm not like, I don't have like crazy good numbers or anything
yeah,
like that. But if I talk about myself,
yeah,
even if I sleep for one training block and I have
yeah,
not trained for 6 months in a row, just
yeah,
that one training block, I start hitting PRs.
yeah,
And it's a thing like a lot of people don't do. Like they don't sleep too well, they don't eat too well, they don't consistently do these things too well. It's like once or twice a week they'll get good sleep and the rest of the week is bad. That itself makes a huge difference. It's a thing
yeah,
that people don't understand, because it's
yeah,
not just about like sleep plays a huge role in neurological development, right? Or like well-being. So skill-based things are very neurologically tied in. And when you're doing SBD work, it's also your brain has to be fresh enough
yeah,
to grind that training pattern in. Like that's
yeah.
also a part of consistent training technique.
I think you know, if I mean, you know, like cognitive issues aside, I think they've done studies where like even like a few hours of sleep deprivation
Yeah.
increases your rate of fat storage and
Yes.
reduces muscle protein synthesis as well. It's like, hey, if you want to guarantee that you reduce muscle building, go sleep less.
Mm.
You know,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there any like, is there an athlete that you have like very top end of numbers regardless of weight class that you like? For example, somebody who squats like 300 plus or deadlifts 300 plus, benches 200 plus. Can you touch up a little bit on that, on someone like that? Do you have someone like that?
Yeah. What would you like to know about them?
Just want to know like what the numbers are like, what weight class they're in, and what is achievable like in that weight class, at least for the degree that you're showing. Because it's
Yeah.
like
So
like I'm only talking to you, right? This is just one
yeah,
data point, but there's so
yeah,
many people on the planet. So when
yeah,
if you can show that this is something that's doable naturally,
yeah,
then like people will actually believe it.
yeah. I mean, I work with a 120 kilo
Okay.
lifter.
Yeah.
So he's he's put on quite a bit.
Hmm.
You know, his very first competition, he's always been a 120 minus lifter, right? And his first
All
competition,
right.
he his total was 640.
Okay.
And the best total he's ever achieved is 888. I mean, I didn't start working
888.
with him. I didn't start
Yeah,
working
yeah,
with
yeah.
him until like more recently, but like, you know, um, like if you know, someone else was working with him at the time, right? So if
Right.
you, what's the maths on that? So that's 150? No,
In what, 4 years?
250. 5 years. 4 years, 5 years.
240.
240, right?
Yeah, 240, 245. 245.5. Yeah.
What's that divided by 4?
That's like 60 kilos.
No, that's yeah, 6. Yeah, so I mean, this is probably someone who's probably like higher on the, you know,
Yeah, like the
uh,
yearly increments. But
yeah,
like even if you think about it, right? See, even if you think about it, it's like you could say like a person can put on like 20 kilos on the squat in a year,
yeah,
25 to 30 on the deadlift, and
yeah,
5 to 10. That's
yeah,
still like, still something that you can be like, oh, that's doable naturally. I don't think
yeah,
you need, right, because yearly you can see something like
yeah,
that. But
yeah,
the main thing is like you have to be consistently training throughout the year, and this is kind of like a touch point on what you said earlier, is that a lot of people, the 25 kilos in a year, it might not seem like much, but because the problem is that a lot of people put in a lot of effort to get that 25 kgs,
yeah,
right? Like you were talking about that before, but you're like, oh, it's the amount of effort that they put in that they feel
yeah,
like they haven't gotten those 2.5 kgs or 5 kgs, right? But if you think about it, like it's multiple blocks throughout the year, and if you
yeah,
think about it, each block the guy has just put on like 2.5 or 5 kgs PR on each lift,
yeah,
and that's how he's eventually put on like 60 70 kgs in 1 year.
yeah.
And that done consistently for like a couple of years is where what takes you to like being really strong.
There are so many things that can derail you, and I think like so much of success isn't doing anything like special. Like I
Hmm.
don't do or program personally anything special. Um,
Yeah.
like so much of it is just so much of the success in powerlifting is avoiding being sabotaged. Whether
Hmm.
get sabotaged or someone else sabotage. I mean, I don't know how someone else is going to sabotage you, but yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
it's you, right? It's all you. It's all like it's not about doing anything special. It's not about how hard you train. Yeah, you need to train hard. Don't get me wrong. You need to
yeah,
do the work,
yeah.
but it's just avoiding getting derailed. And I think this is a bit of wisdom that I'll finish off on this point. Um,
Hmm.
Charlie Munger, the investor, who used to be
No.
Warren Buffett. Yeah, so he's a very successful investor, right? And
Hmm.
he was Warren Buffett's like partner,
Hmm.
business partner,
Hmm.
and you know, so he says that he was talking about how much long term advantage he has
Hmm.
by avoiding being stupid.
Hmm.
Does it make sense? And it's like
Yeah.
if you can list every single way that you can get you can have your progress sabotaged. It's like let's say you hypothetically, if all things are all if the stars were aligned and you could potentially put 50 kilos in your total in a year, let's just say, right? It's like, okay, how if we on average sleep bad half of the year, what can we
Hmm.
reduce that to?
20 25, maybe
Right.
even lesser.
Let's okay, fine. Let's say okay, so that drops down to 25 kilos. Okay,
Yeah.
and let's say you are inconsistent with your protein. How much more can we drop that to?
Another 5 10 kilos maybe.
All right, fine. So you can only gain 20 kilos. And what about if you stray away from the program a lot and you change your technique a lot? How much can we drop that down to?
Then you're just going to stay or even
Yeah.
regress.
And then you realize, next thing you realize, you make zero progress. Does that
Yeah.
make sense? So if you I like to think about inversion thinking. So this mental model that I use is inversion thinking. It's like hypothetically, if things worked well like this.
Yeah.
If we think about like, okay, what can we do to sabotage this?
Right.
And if we were to be hypothetical with it, you realize there's so much of these common things that we know are bad for us that we do it anyways, right?
Hmm.
And and we do it all together. We don't see that we're stacking things against ourselves. Does it make
Hmm.
sense?
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
One thing that I always say, and I notice this because I think people spend money stupidly, which is
Yeah.
that if you have to think about your success in powerlifting like a business, in the sense that like investing in a good coach is great, but
Hmm.
you also think like all the money that you spend outside, like in terms of return on investment in your progress, what's best? It's probably
Yeah.
not like the next pre-workout. You
Yeah. Yeah.
probably might you're probably how much you spend on supplements a year, like I don't know, like 100 USD, like a month
Hmm.
or something like that.
Hmm. Hmm.
Like, and that's 1,000. Let's say you spend 1,000. I don't know. Let's just keep it conservative. Let's say 60, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
60 US dollars a month on supplements. and that's a pre-workout, that's protein, right?
Yeah.
What's that a year? That's $600 or
Yeah.
$700, right? Let's say you spend
$720.
$700, $720 a year on supplements. Could you invest that in a nutrition coach? Could you invest that in a in better sleeping environment in your bedroom, right? Like, if you think about it like that, if you spend less money on hoodies and t-shirts to look good in a gym, right? But spend money on like better food, more protein, right? Like, you're probably, if you think about it like that, you'll probably make much better progress. And I think that, like, and I think people underestimate how much they stack things against themselves. But
I have a very similar saying, like what you said just now, is that, like, I tell people that life is pretty simple. You just need to make smart decisions. Don't make stupid ones.
Yeah.
And that's like, it just rounds back to whatever you just said. It's like, well, if you sleep on time, you're going to feel good. If you feel good, you'll eat well, you'll go train, your training will go really well. And all you have to do is just do that every day.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that a lot of people don't understand. Like that part itself, like, makes a huge difference.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool, man. Right. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you for joining in and
no worries, man.
Spending your time here. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Cool.
All right.
See you soon.
All
Bye.
right. I'll see you.